Hi, I'm Megan, the Adult Services Manager here at Ames Public Library.
And I'm Alissa, the Resource Services Manager here.
We're here to give you some recommendations for our second annual 12 to Try reading challenge. For the month of October, the challenge is food memoir or cookbook about food culture different from your own. So stay tuned for our suggestions or come to the library and check out our display promoting the challenge. Yay. What you got first, Alissa?
I went for cookbooks this time because I love food, and I mean, who doesn't? And the challenge, part of the challenge was to, like you said, find a cookbook or memoir from a culture outside of your own. And I picked two Indian cookbooks. The first one by Raghavan Iyer. And what's really neat about his story is he came over to do college and university in southwestern Minnesota. Yeah, and realized that southwestern Minnesota isn't a hotbed for a lot of Indian cuisine and, you know, resources for cooking like that. So he kind of had to learn on the fly because this was, I'm trying to think how old the cookbook is and how long it's been since he's, you know, did university over there, but the internet wasn't as prevalent and popular as it is now, so he had to improvise. And what I love about this book is that it's got about 100 recipes using 10 ingredients or less, and everything's available at, like, you know, Aldi, Target, Walmart, Hy-Vee, Fairway. And so it's super approachable. It's got great,
beautiful pictures,
beautiful illustrations. Everything's, you know, colored. It's very step by step, and it's a fantastic cookbook to get into. They give you hints on what spices you should buy, you know, to stock your pantry with. Yeah. And it's, yeah, I have made quite a bit out of here, and it's one of my favorite when I want a break from all the hot dishes in Minnesota. So, what was your first?
I picked Crying in H Mart. So this fits the memoir category. And while Crying in H Mart isn't exactly a food memoir per se, food plays such a huge role in it that I couldn't not select it. So Crying in H Mart is a memoir of Michelle Zauner. She's the lead singer of the band Japanese Breakfast. And it goes through her story of her mother becoming severely ill and eventually passing away, and her reconnection with her Korean heritage and her Korean roots through food specifically. She basically teaches herself how to make Korean food by watching, second pick, Manchi. She's a YouTuber who cooks Korean food and basically taught Michelle how to cook Korean food so that she could reconnect with her heritage after her mother's passing. So these two kind of go hand in hand. You have your memoir and then also your cookbook if you want to follow up. And
I just went full solid cookbook because, like I said, I can't get enough food. And the second one that I picked was Priya Krishna's Indian-ish.
I love Priya.
This is such a fun cookbook. She talks about learning to cook Indian. She talks about her parents' travels and journey and immigration to the United States and just kind of growing up in that culture and the American culture and just discovering the love of Indian cooking that her mom instilled in her. This one is super approachable too. I mean, everything is so easy to make, and they give you great tips and hints and everything that you'd need for cooking.
Yeah.
I highly recommend.
Priya has an awesome series on the New York Times Cooking Channel where she both cooks food but also goes and meets like people who are in sort of untalked about areas of food creation and interviews them, and it's a whole series. It's really wonderful. So if you want more Priya, New York Times Cooking. My other pick is another food memoir. I'm a food junkie. I read about food a lot. The Cooking Gene by Michael W. Twitty. Michael Twitty is a longtime food historian and specifically researched and really lives the African American heritage foodways in a lot of ways. He is a historical interpreter and so has used his research in the ways in which he's interpreting historical cooking in the places he has worked. But also this is like a really deep dive into his genetic genealogy as well as how he connects that with cooking and African American foodways through memoir. So if that is an area of interest for you, Southern cooking, African American cooking, the Cooking Gene would be a great one to look at.
I remember when that came through and I cataloged it and I flipped through it.
Yep.
I love my job.
It's a long one.
Yeah.
But it goes super in depth.
But it's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's so fascinating.
Yeah. My last one that I picked, the Dungeons and Dragons Heroes Feast official cookbook. Not technically, well, I mean, it's not from where I'm from.
That's
I am
true.
not an elf, a dwarf, an orc, or otherwise.
That is true.
But if you want a fun take on pretty standard dishes that you see with a fantasy flair, I highly recommend checking out this.
Yeah.
Any
Love
D&D fan does need to,
Yeah,
at least give it a read.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's,
All right, those are Alissa and I's suggestions for October for the second annual 12 to Try reading challenge. I hope you enjoy.